seconds. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Nour Hamad. I work with AFSC on our Palestine activism team. Today, we are joined by amazing guest speakers, all of whom are esteemed Palestinian scholars, educators, engineers, and we have a lot to learn from them. I firstly want to thank all of you for joining us today. As Gaza enters almost the 9th month of genocide and complete destruction, this discussion is more important than ever. This webinar was organized by the American Friends Service Committee, our Palestine activism program, which is comprised of me and my amazing colleagues, Youssef, Zoe, and Jennifer, who are all here today to moderate the discussion and answer your questions in the chat. And before we get started, a few words about the technical side of things. So auto captioning is available with English as the default languages, but other languages are available. If you can use the chat, you can use the chat function to say hello and ask questions and have comments. But you all in the audience will stay muted with your cameras off as we are recording. So you don't need to worry about how you look or anything like that. And we will send an email out to everybody on Tuesday, everybody who registered, with the recording of this webinar and a summary, including all of the links that have been shared. So thank you again for joining. I will now pass the rest of the moderation off to my colleague, Youssef El Jamal, who is our Gaza coordinator, to tell us more about our guest speakers.
Thank you very much, Nour, for these introductory remarks. I think it's really important that we highlight the education sector in Gaza, which has been one of the thriving sectors despite the siege and occupation. Over the years, Palestinians have invested in education. And I have attended honor schools myself in Gaza, and I do believe in the power of education and providing education for Palestinians under under occupation. In order for Palestinians to be able to liberate themselves from Israel's ongoing occupation. So today we decided that discussing education in Gaza is one of our priorities, and it will be part of our agenda for the next few months after the genocide that took place in Gaza. I would like to welcome our speakers today, Dr. Ahmed Maher Alghazali, Dr. Nour Hamad, and Majd Almishharawi. I'll start with our first speaker. Dr. Ahmed Maher Alghazali is a Palestinian medical professional and academic. He has obtained his Jordanian Board of Endocrinology and Databases in 2019, and he has a specialty certificate in the same field from the Federation of Royal Colleges of Physicians of the United Kingdom, and also another fellowship in the same field from Jordan University Hospital in Amman. Additionally, he has the 2015 Arab Board and Jordanian Board of Internal Medicine and a higher specialization in internal medicine from the University of Jordan, along with a Doctor of Medicine from Al-Quds University in Palestine. Dr. Ahmed's professional journey includes his current roles since September 2022 as Vice Dean for the Clinical Sciences at the Faculty of Medicine, the Islamic University of Gaza. And since November 2019, he's a lecturer and the head of Internal Medicine Department at the same university. Dr. Ahmed, thank you very much for joining us. You have a wide range of experience, especially in the medical field in Gaza and medical education. And we've seen the destruction that hit every sector in Gaza, including the medical sector. How do you evaluate the damage that impacted the medical sector in Gaza, and how do you see the way forward?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It is evident to you all the severity and the brutality of the current Israeli war on Gaza, affecting all aspects of life. Undoubtedly, you are aware of the rising number of murders, casualties, and along with the destruction of homes, schools, universities, hospitals, all of that. As planned, we will focus on the academic and educational aspect of this ongoing aggression and targeting the higher education, especially medicine, and all components of the higher education, staff, buildings, infrastructure was a primary aim of this ruthless onslaught. Most universities, as you know, most universities have been destroyed either partially or completely, along with targeting numerous faculty members, including presidents of the universities, professors, lecturers, many others. And all of that led to the complete stopping of the higher education and really all the levels of education process at all levels in Gaza. Moreover, the reconstruction of this sector requires a lot of time, many efforts, and this is very difficult at this situation. But I will concentrate only on one aspect of that, which is the medical education, which is my specialty and my work. Leaving room to my colleagues to discuss other aspects, inshallah. In Gaza, we have two faculty of medicine, two faculties. One is in the Islamic University of Gaza and one in Al-Azhar University. The medical students are around 2,500 students for both universities. And of course, the buildings of the both faculties and most of the universities were destroyed completely, or some buildings are partially during this war. The medical education has some distinct consideration from the other colleges, primarily due to the medical education needs not only theoretical education, it needs also clinical training in the hospitals, and it has direct relationship with the medical field. So we will not speak only about the education, we will speak also about the training and the medical situation in Gaza. Uh, the distinction or the special consideration of the medical education, as I mentioned, the need for clinical rotation, so that not only we can compensate the medical education by online or remote lectures, we need also medical training in the hospitals. And as you know, most hospitals were destroyed. This is the one thing. Another thing, that is no flexibility to skip any part of the curriculum for a medical student, as in some theoretical colleges, you can fulfill the graduation requirement for any subject and you can complete. But in medicine, you can't skip any part because it's medicine and you will deal with a human body. The other thing is the practical training in the laboratories and subjects like anatomy, histology, pathology, all of that need laboratories to practice in. And this is essential part of the education. And also our Islamic University, the students will be subject to internationally accredited exam, which is called IFOM. It's International Foundation of Medicine of America. It's crucial for graduation. It is a requirement for them for the graduation, and we are the only accredited center for conducting this exam in the Palestinian territories. And this needs specific requirements regarding labs, regarding computers, regarding the how to do types and layout of the computers. Many prerequisites for this exam. And as you know, the laboratories and the computer labs were also destroyed, and this will add more burden on us. In summary, I want to emphasize that the medical education is among the most severely affected sectors in the war with the other fields of the education, and it was affected very much. But on the other hand, the medical students, the current medical students now, played a crucial and active role during the war, during this aggression, despite they are not graduated, they are still medical students, but they are volunteering in the hospitals. They are playing a major role, especially because we have some deficiencies for some doctors. Some were murdered, some were displaced, some were traveled. So the medical students played, and they are now playing a major role in the health service now in our emergency. and because of the increased workload and lack of doctors. So I think, in my opinion, that urgent support of the medical students and to continue their education and to be graduated is critically needed and uh, critical needed at this time. So we face numerous challenges to restore the medical education, and we have been and continue to work in several efforts to do that. Initially, we were our effort focused on securing theoretical lectures or remote lectures for the theoretical subject. And we reached out for various institutions, and there was many volunteers, many initiatives that supported us with that. But and I can mention that some of the West Bank universities like Al Najah and many other initiatives from UK and other areas uh, offered that and did that, but the problem is that there is no internet connection for the students in Gaza. They can't reach except you can a very minority, 1 or 2% who can have internet, and is not continuous. And the student need to go for miles and miles to have internet connection, and it's a very weak connection. So the remote lectures are good, but they are not sufficient to, for us to complete the education. And of course, there is no houses, there is no food, there is no security. This students can't be learned like now. But we are dealing with some initiative like that, and we're continuing to work that. And this is only one part of the medical education. I mentioned that you have to have clinical training in the hospitals. This is the first aspect. The second aspect, we try to work on that. There is some displaced students who were forced to leave Gaza with their families, and they are outside now. They are outside Gaza, and they are distributed in many countries, mostly in Egypt, but there are some of them in Turkey, some of them in Europe. We tried to gain something like clinical attachment, which should be temporary, and there is rules for that. Should be temporary, and the student will be a visiting student, not to transfer the student, because we want to preserve our universities, and the degrees will be taken from the parent university of the mother university, which is Islamic University or Al Azhar University. We are searching for such opportunities for the minority of students who are outside for clinical attachment till the cross border is open or till they can return back to Gaza. And unfortunately, we have only very limited seats for the students, and we are trying with many other institutions to have some seats or some clinical rotations as visiting students. This is the second aspect, which is the training outside. And the first aspect was the remote lectures online. The third and the most important aspect was our understanding that nearly about more than 90% of our students are still inside Gaza. Most of them are displaced. The hospital were destroyed, and many of their teachers either murdered or displaced or either traveled, or they have a lot of work they can't teach them. But we know that most or some of other students are already doing their jobs, and they are volunteering in the hospitals. So after a lot of work and collaboration and cooperation with many initiatives, uh, we started, and this is a strange thing, we started the official clinical training for the medical students of both universities starting from June 1st, 1 month ago. They are during the war, they have the clinical teaching with the clinical rotations, with lectures inside the remaining hospitals and the field hospitals and some governmental, some NGOs, but they are now learning on the ground despite all the situation and this is a very strange and very amazing thing. And we succeed to do this with many initiatives, and I will mention the most important initiative we work with, which was the Gaza Medics Education Scheme, which is called GEM, and it is driven by the Palmed Europe. And the students now started their medical rotation, and this is a good step in the medical education in Gaza. However, there are many constraints remain and many obstacles of sustaining this program, like the financial issues. You want to support the trainers, you want to pay for the transportation, and you know that the source of income for the universities was previously the tuition or the fees of the students, which now no student can pay any fee for the university. So are we relying on the outside project and initiatives? And the other things that are the students are displaced in many areas, and they can't go to other sides of the Gaza Strip. So we did that every student in any area who's displaced or living will have his training or her training in the near hospital. And we have to do multiple schedules and multiple organizations for this, and it's difficult, but we are trying to
Ahmed,
continue that.
allow me to intervene. And really, like, we know that what's happening in Gaza is unprecedented, and the genocide that is going on that is also impacting, medical teams and students, and there are many challenges on the ground. I'll talk to you more about this, but allow me now to go to our second speaker. So you highlighted a very important point that the practical side of medicine requires work on the ground and having, staff and students and labs. At the same time, we also have social sciences, which is more flexible, and people can use the internet a lot more compared to natural sciences. And many schools in Gaza are now in ruins, and many of them are used as places to station Israeli soldiers, or turned into shelters for internally displaced Palestinians. So the damage the education system has suffered is beyond imagination. I would like to move to our second speaker, and ask her my first question. Dr. Nour Hamad. She's a lecturer of um, English literature, Palestinian educator and scholar, um, and she invests a lot in the field of literature and education, especially amidst challenging circumstances like times of war and emergency. Her academic journey commenced with a BA in English literature at the Islamic University Gaza, followed by an MA in English literature at the University of Westminster in London. And finally, she also got her PhD in English literature from Zaim University in Istanbul, where she delved into the intricacies of language and literature during times of crisis. Her doctoral thesis, Representations of Trauma, Memory, and Identity of the Palestinian in Contemporary English Literature, is a statement to her dedication to understanding the psychological impact of conflict on literature and language. Dr. Noor, thank you very much for joining us. And my question to you is, how do you see the damage and the impact of the Israeli genocide in Gaza on social sciences? And you can highlight English literature as an example based on your experience.
Thank you. All right. Starting from your question, I'd like actually to explain my focus a little bit, or the thing that I think is the most important from what I see from targeting social sciences, all the departments, whether it's language, history, literature, all other the social sciences. So my thought was on why is Israel threatened by the Palestinian education, by the libraries, the archives, the universities, the schools, and I don't want to turn this into news brief and tell the count of the hundreds of faces of these places, representatives and professors, influential people that were intentionally targeted with their families, the tens of buildings, archives, units of libraries, etc. So when we first actually were, when you said we're gonna talk about education, it felt a little bit irrelevant at first impression, because among all of this like that's going on and we're witnessing people being burned alive, shelled into pieces, I was like, isn't it really a little bit off to talk about education right now? But with just a slight thought on that, I realized that actually the intentional and systematic targeting of educational foundation in Gaza and the faces that represent it shows us that it is the target. It's not simply collateral damage. Actually, those people, the Palestinian, the Gazan citizens, the infrastructure, the whole system, the community, all is the target, actually, the direct target that is covered up by this propaganda of, well, targeting terrorism or whatever other distorted propaganda that the Zionists are kind of hiding behind. So education is at the core of this genocide, I believe. Education is hope, and hope is dangerous for the colonizer. And knowledge is power, in the sense that it keeps people grounded. Israel wants to destroy any sense of faith or knowing. Education is keeping the memory and the history, which proves that it is simply a story of colonization, and the owners of the land will eventually gain victory. So there is a pattern that Israel is always targeting those foundations. In order, I think the aim is to strip Palestinians from their political agency and to a big extent limiting it or turning the case into a mere humanitarian case. So humanitarian efforts, feed the people, destroy the grounds, which starts by killing or targeting the education system. So how did Palestinians face this? The Palestinians citizens know that they are the very target and that they are not collateral damage. So they have been trying again and again to educate the world about this obvious truth for them. That is, it is a genocide, it is political, and it's not simply a humanitarian case, as the US or the West media machine, the mainstream media, are trying to manipulate the masses into believing. So why does Israel target education? First, disruption of civil society and leadership. Educated individuals and institutions often play key roles in maintaining civil society and leadership. So by targeting these, Israel aims at disrupting Gaza's organizational structure, governance, and social cohesion. Second, undermining resistance. So universities and schools can be centers for political activism and intellectual resistance. By targeting these, Israel is attempting to undermine the intellectual and ideological foundations of the resistance movement. Third, the psychological impact, which is like the most obvious one that we can see now while the genocide is ongoing on children, that when you interview them, the first thing they say, we want to live, and after that, we want to go back to school, right? So it is playing like the time here, we cannot talk about the psychological impact enough. So attacking educational institutions and killing or injuring educated individuals can have a demoralizing effect on the population. It can instill fear and insecurity, especially when the faces and the big names, the people, the leaders, everyone who can keep any sense of resilience on the ground is directly targeted or threatened. And for deprivation of future generation. As we know, we have a whole generation now of kids and university students who have lost at least for now 1 year of their school life, of their education life, and we don't know what's gonna happen. So destroying educational infrastructure can have long-term impacts by depriving future generations of education, which can hinder the development of the socioeconomic progress in Gaza. The last one, which is also very important one, is controlling the narrative. So educated individuals, including journalists, professors, public figures, are often instrumental in shaping public opinion and international perceptions, which we saw very strongly during this genocide, how they actually succeeded to reshape lots of the international perception about what is really happening in Palestine, about the story of colonization, simply colonized and colonizer. So by targeting those people, Israel is attempting to control the narrative and reduce criticism of its actions. However, Gazans are aware of all of this. This is the result of the focus on education that was a clear thing from Palestinian and Gazan families. They always send their kids to schools, and it is a very important thing for them. They are aware of that, and they chose to speak to the hearts. And maybe all of you have noticed that since the beginning of especially this recent genocide, everyone in Gaza, all the victims were trying to speak English, even though it's not their first language. Some of them struggle a little bit. However, they still try hard to speak in English. So why did they choose to speak in English? Because English language was this tool that made them feel that they can get their message across. More people can relate and can see that they are exactly the same like them. They can find the dehumanization of them. They can state clearly their side of the story. So they wanted to hear, to be heard and to take control of their own narrative, which is something I think is starting to showing results, and it disrupts the work of the Zionist colonizer, which aims at kind of make their slaughter silent and easy and just get away with it. So advocating in English allowed Gazans to reach a global audience and reshape their perceptions, and sharing their personal stories and images and videos helped counter the systematic dehumanization. So it also garnered sympathy. We see that lots of people joined, like more people joined the BDS movement. We see the students movement, the encampment. We saw recently some campaigns on social media for boycotting influencers who were passive or on the side of, or kind of finding excuses for this genocide in any way. So there was this campaign of boycott influencers who are not very vocal and clear about where they stand from this. So it became kind of a moral compass to show where do you stand, which side of the story, and how we will be remembered, where you stood on which side of history. We see this in some videos on social media of small kids, you know, like asking mommy, is this product or is this chocolate on the boycott list or not? Can I have it, or is it on the boycott? So it is actually resetting the moral compass for the world, and it is changing the ideology. It is challenging the Zionist narrative that was for a long time dominating, and that was for a long time facilitating the killing of Palestinians and Gazans. Actually, I want to mention, I think you're trying to say.
Go ahead.
Just one last thing. Where is?
Yeah.
Where this came, like first time I actually thought about this the awareness, the strong awareness inside the Palestinians of the importance of documenting and narrating and making their voice heard, is that it hit me first time in 2006 when we all watched the targeting of Huda Ghali's family on the beach. And as a little girl, she saw her family like dead in front of her, just targeted in front of her. And if you remember her screams, after she was screaming father father, and she checked her father wasn't responding, and she ran to check the rest of the family, the first person that approached her, she told him, film him. She was pointing at her father and asking the person to film him. So in the unconscious of this little girl, she also realized she wanted her story to be filmed, to be documented, to be seen. So this is something kind of instilled even in the small children, which is showing now even the small kids in Gaza are trying to speak English on cameras until like, well, we've been targeted, we did nothing, we didn't like these kinds of...
This reminds me of an African proverb that says, until lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunters. Thank you very much, Dr. Noor. Now we will go to our last speaker, and I'm going to introduce her quickly. Majd Almishharawi. Gaza is known as the city that rises from the ashes, and Majd has made use of ashes in Gaza, destruction and rubble. She produced bricks that were used in the reconstruction of Gaza after Israel's multiple military offensives. She is from Gaza, and she keenly observes the pressing need for construction materials to rebuild damaged buildings and infrastructure. And I think this is a very creative idea. Majd has been working on this before October 7 and before the genocide. And I think this is a pressing need now. In 2015, she took the initiative to address this critical need by founding the Green Cake, a pioneering campaign that ingeniously creates environmentally friendly bricks from ash and rubble in Gaza, offering a sustainable solution to rebuilding efforts. For her remarkable efforts, Green Cake earned recognition as a runner-up in the esteemed MIT Pan-Arab competition. One last nine. Majd's academic background is rooted in excellence, holding a PSc in civil engineering from the esteemed Islamic University of Gaza. So Majd, as an engineer, how do you see the impact of the Israeli ongoing attack and genocide on Gaza on the engineering sector? So impact-wise, please explain this to us. But also, how do you see the way forward? Now we have much trouble in Gaza. What are we going to do with this?
Thank you, Yusuf, for having me on this panel, and it's a pleasure to be with the panelists who give us very informative information about the current situation in education from different sides. First and most of all, I always say that Palestine has one of the highest education percentage in the world. And it really breaks my heart to see my people suffering from, lack of education, students suffering from lack of education. And as I said, like education is the highest, education is the strongest weapon we have in Gaza.
Could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I was saying that, education was our strongest weapon in Gaza. And we have so many creative engineers who created solutions throughout the past few years in Gaza to address serious issues that our community is suffering from. And for myself, since I was a kid, I always, used my background to address social issues, as you said. And one of the most successful companies I had in Gaza was, creating green cake blocks company, creating new kind of blocks to help rebuilding Gaza after having multiple wars since I was born. The current genocide has affected the education in Palestine and in Gaza like really severely. As we can see, most of the students are not able to have access to education since the beginning of this genocide. And the only ones who I have it also on the personal side, like I have a sister who was one of the best students in Gaza. And when she left Gaza after a couple of months during the war, no school could admit her in Saudi Arabia. She couldn't have a residency in any other place. And finally, after losing 1 year of school, we were able to send her to the US to continue her education. But how many students in Gaza who left Gaza were able to have such an access? I would say less than 1% of the students. This is from one side. From the second side, the students who lost their lives. We have very elite students who graduated from high school and they got 99%, 98%. They were supposed to be doctors and engineers, but unfortunately, they were killed during the genocide. And those students could be a huge asset to the country to help rebuilding the country and change the future of the people in Gaza. So just imagine what are we losing? We're not just losing the future of the people who are still alive, but also we lost a huge asset of the people who were killed, and they could be a huge, added value to the community. This from one side. From the second side, if we look at what's going to happen next, no one knows. No one is telling you what's going to happen next month. No one is telling you for how long this war will be going on. And this is a huge challenge for the students because, they don't know if they will continue their education. They don't know if they will be, uneducated. They have no idea, you know what I mean? So these things makes the students feel unstable, and it also affects their mental status. Because these students, if they will go back to the education, the first thing we should work on is how to fix their mental status. Because going through almost nine months of a war, of a genocide, is completely affecting their, the students' minds, especially the school students, not just the college students. And this is something we should work on before even resuming their education, Yusuf. As an engineer, I myself, most of my friends who are engineers in Gaza, they lost their jobs, of course, because they were working for the private sector mainly, and most of the companies have been demolished, including my own company. And most of people lost their jobs. So now we have educated people with experience, with no access to internet, and they have no income. So no education, more poverty, and next destroying the community. So, and I think this is one of the main goals of this genocide. It's not just about destroying Gaza, but also destroying the infrastructure of education. So you create a poor society that has different crimes, etc., etc. And in the future, you can't imagine how those people will be reacting towards each other and towards the world. Regarding rebuilding Gaza, we are currently working on post-war projects in Gaza to build a huge planet in Gaza to use the rappel to create the blocks after the war. But again, it's still a plan. We planned for it, we designed it, we worked with different international organizations, but we still don't know if this will happen and when it's gonna happen. And we have, the budgeting ready, people who's gonna work on it, where are we going to do it? But we don't know when, and we don't know if it will happen in the near future and when it's gonna happen. So again, when we talk about this genocide, we don't only talk about what happened, we also talk about what's gonna happen, which is the uncertainty of things, which is, makes us feel unstable. One last sentence I wanna say is, I've visited so many countries around the world. I've never seen as hungry as people in Gaza towards education. So people in Gaza, once, I myself hire people in my company, 100% Gazan team. And after the war, when the war started, so I lost some of team members. They were killed during this genocide. And I wasn't able to reach out to some of my team members who stayed inside Gaza. So I had to hire people from other other nations. And I could see the amount of, delivering the work. People in Gaza are very, very committed to things when they take it, and they always look for innovative solutions to make their positions higher and also to benefit the company. And I've never seen this in any other people who we hired who are non-Gazans. And this gives us one answer, that people in Gaza were really dedicated to change their future and to build their future and to learn new things and to be better and to have a place in this big world, but nothing was helping them. So our current generation, who will be the next leaders, hopefully, so they are now being destroyed from so many different angles, inside Gaza and outside Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Majd, for this description of the situation of engineering students and the engineering sector in the Gaza Strip. Now I will have a quick round of questions to our speakers. Please try to answer in 1 minute. I'll start with Dr. Ahmed. There was a letter published by university professors from Gaza calling for rebuilding the education system in Gaza itself. How do you see this, like, materializing, and the importance of focusing on rebuilding the education system in Gaza itself rather than sending students outside?
I talked about that. More than of 90% or more of the students are still in Gaza, and the faculty members, most of them are still in Gaza, and we want to preserve our faculties. We want to rebuild this educational system, and this needs a lot of efforts, a lot of budgets, a lot of infrastructure, and will take a long time, in my opinion. But it is a must, and I will repeat myself again that in this very difficult situation, our students are being learned now. They are trained. They are going to the hospitals and have lectures and have examinations as usual in this very difficult situation. So they need to rebuild their education, to attend the universities from the beginning, from another time, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nour Hamad, you mentioned online education and that it's also practical and applicable in the case of social sciences. Could you please talk more about this in light of the challenge that was also discussed by other speakers, that internet and the internet infrastructure in Gaza was mostly destroyed, and how is this applicable?
Well, actually, I think it is very difficult to apply this for students inside Gaza right now. Let me just start okay. However, I think I'm gonna second Majd in what she said, that there is also a big number of students who left Gaza recently with their families, kids especially, who were not integrated into the schools of the places that the countries that they were received in. So maybe we should focus on finding solutions as a start for those kids. And for students inside Gaza, like under the ongoing genocide, maybe if we can sponsor any getting books into them as alternatives, and finding like tents in a relatively safer places, and having like go the old way, because the internet, I think I know of people who travel kilometers to access internet in order to just kind of connect and inform the world of what's going on. So the internet is the most difficult one right now.
Thank you, Dr. Noor. Majd, could you please tell us if you know of any initiative to link Gaza students and academics who were displaced due to the war with other universities and other projects outside Gaza? We know at least there are 100,000 Palestinians from Gaza in Egypt alone. And so there is a community there. And these are people who we could work with now rather than like focusing on people who are being subjected to genocide. So the challenges in Gaza are much more. Are you aware of any projects to help people in Egypt, for example, or other countries?
Yeah, Yusuf, I just want to mention three things. The first thing is there is no, I would say, organized way to help people who left Gaza at the moment. I'm aware of. I'm following you closely with so many families in Egypt. I'm going to Egypt in the coming weeks, but there is no organized way. But there is a group of professors who are currently offering online free courses on different online educational platform, including edX, etc., etc. I can share with you the link after. And so many people signed up, but as they were expecting higher number, but I think they didn't get the number they wanted because it was not, I think they have to do more PR work for it, to tell more people and to tell people that this exists. This is number one. Regarding what Dr. Noor mentioned about the internet, we're also currently working on getting a couple of thousands of small solar units into Gaza that will allow people to get connected to Wi-Fi and to have basic electrical needs, like to charge their laptops, their phones as a first step. And this is designed specifically for the tents, just as an emergency aid. So we can allow students, hopefully by the beginning of next year, to get access to online educational platform with the Ministry of Education so they can continue their education. And when the war, hopefully if this genocide ends soon, it doesn't mean tomorrow they can go back to education because they need a lot of reconstruction. Yusuf, can you hear me? Yusuf?
We can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I think I lost you for a second. Okay. So I was saying, even if this genocide ends, it doesn't mean people can go tomorrow to their education because this needs lots of work, like building, the internet network, building new schools or finding places for people to learn. So this kind of solar units will help students to have access to internet at the moment, at least to resume their education. The third thing I want to mention also, helping the students who left. We need to build a database for the students who are currently outside of Gaza and what kind of education they need, and to help connecting them to different schools and colleges. I know so many students who are in Egypt. They don't have financial resources to go to private schools because they cannot be admitted at public schools because they are not granted residences in Egypt. I know so many students who left Egypt to different Arab countries, and again, they don't have residencies, so they don't have access to education. So I think if we can work on building a database for these students and help plugging them into different colleges and universities, I think this is very, very important. And again, from a personal experience, my brother, who's in his third year of college, could not continue his education, and he was not admitted to any college in Saudi Arabia. So we are sending him to the US, and we sent my sister also to continue her school. So this is very important for all the people who are attending this webinar. If you have access and resources to help the students who left Gaza to continue their education, please do.
Thank you, Majd. Ahmed, yeah, you can respond. You're muted.
Sorry, I want to add a small point here regarding the internet in Gaza and the challenges that the students have. We try to do some internet points in some safe areas, like when the students go to the hospitals, the hospital may be considered as a safe area mostly. If we can get internet points for the students and the student, we try to do that, and the student could download the lectures and we did the platform for them, and they can download the material and to review it at home. And we succeed in some centers to do that for the inside students. Regarding the outside students, I will speak about the medical students for both universities. We already have a clear database. We know every student, where is he now, and we are trying to get the clinical attachment outside for the outside student, and we are cooperating with many initiatives in that, and we are aware of all the students who are inside, and we are training them. So at our level for the medical students or the faculty of medicine, we have a clear database, and we are trying to have clinical places or teaching for every student, either in Gaza or outside Gaza.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ahmad. So there are a couple of questions. I'll now move to the questions from participants who joined the panel today. There's a question about students helping students. How do you see, like, this is a question for everyone. How do you see this is possible?
We should answer.
I mean, if you like, you can answer, or it's a question for everybody if you have an idea.
Yusuf, can you please repeat the question?
So there was a question about how students could help students rather than like institutions, like on an individual level, like students outside Gaza.
Well, I believe, you know, even for people who left Gaza and they were lucky enough to survive this genocide, they are not ready to give at the moment. This is my own personal point of view. I think they are, you know, as I said, people who left Gaza, we don't think that they are mentally ready to give. I think they are in a stage of they wanted lots of support first to go over what they've seen, and most of them have families also back home. As Dr. Ahmed said, you know, he said, you know, some students left, but their families are inside, and their friends and their, you know, everyone they know is still inside Gaza. And there is no access, as we say, like there's no internet, there's no stable internet in Gaza where people can outside who left and get, I would say, benefits to continue their education. They don't have access with the people back home. Like if they can have a phone call once a week, they will be lucky enough. You know what I mean? So we need to create the access before talking about resources.
Thank you. Dr. Ahmed?
Yes, regarding how can students help the students if they are students outside, in my opinion, there are many ways, but I will say that we try to reach out for many universities or organizations to accept our students as visitor students, but of course we can't reach for the whole universities of the world. If they have connections with their faculties, if they have with their universities, to allow some students to spend clinical rotation or in any specialty to have small rotation or small clinical attachment or studying in their universities, this will be good. Another initiative that happened in or will happen in Jordan, some of the students in the Jordanian universities are donating a fixed amount of money every month for supporting the projects of the medical education. Sorry, I'm speaking only about medicine because I am aware of the project, but they can do in any field. They are spending or donating every month a specific amount of their money. They are students, this a small amount of money, but they are donating and participating in donation. And we got many lectures and added to the platform from students in Jordan. So there are many ways for the students to help.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. There was a question for you. You mentioned medical students volunteering at Gaza hospitals, and they played a huge role during the genocide. There was a question if they get any credits for that,
Like what credits?
like
Money?
university credits in return for
No, no.
doing volunteer work.
This volunteering was not considered as official training or medical training. They were volunteering, and many of the outside delegations or doctors came from missions from outside. They told us that they were relying on the medical student nearly completely in their work as assistants for them. They have a very good degree of work, but it is not considered as a training. They were volunteering, but from the June 1st we started an official clinical program, which is official teaching, and this will be accredited for them. But the volunteer job, they will make experience, they will help, and it's where the duties, they were taking duties, but it's not a part of the official training for them for the graduation.
Thank you very much. There's a question about collecting books. I will ask it to Dr. Nour Hamad. Uh, One of the participants said, I was wondering about collecting books for Gaza. I am a retired social science professor and know others who have many professional books. First, is English useful? Second, is there any initiative to collect books?
I don't know of any initiative yet. I know of some small initiatives of people who are inside Gaza circulating the books they have around, and older students teaching younger students in the tents, inside the tents. But an initiative to actually a way to get books from outside into the inside Gaza, maybe this could be suggested for anyone who can facilitate that. English is definitely very, very useful. Any books of English is appreciated by the Gazan citizens. Now everyone wants to actually be able to convey their message in English as well.
Thank you, Dr. Noor. Yes, Dr. Ahmed, go ahead.
I think that I appreciate that regarding the box, and we tried that. But I think it's very difficult to get anything now inside Gaza. And you know, the aids and the food and the medical aids are stuck in Egypt. So we tried to do another similar thing, which is a small USB including the materials or the box as electronic box, and to distribute for the students who are not able to have internet. I think this will be more efficient to have the material on a small piece as a flash USB. I don't think that you can get now books to enter Gaza and the heaviness and the magnetic box, because we can't now, the food can't enter.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. So online resources are really appreciated and welcome. There's a question. So I'm going to tell you something about the Quakers. The Quakers have a network of schools and universities in the US and elsewhere. And there's a question, what could a small Quaker group in the US do to help that would be most effective? So considering, this network of schools and universities, what do you think is the best way to help students, schools, and staff in Gaza? And this is a question for everyone in their field, and I will conclude with this question.
I answered this question in the chat, Yusuf, and I said by connecting the students who left Gaza to different schools and colleges to continue their education. That's very important. I'm aware also of a couple of universities in the US who are getting Gazan students to resume their education or to have higher education like master's or PhD. I'm happy. Sorry?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm share some of the links with you afterwards so you can share it with people who you might know in Egypt who are interested to continue their education.
Okay, thank you. I said I will conclude, but there's another question about informal education. If there is any sort of informal education happening in Gaza, considering that many schools were destroyed.
Actually, I've heard that the Islamic University have announced yesterday, I just read this piece of news, that they are going to continue online education, and they are like trying now to set a way of how students can join, which is one thing we will have to wait and see how it's gonna work. For other things, I wanted to highlight also scholarships would be kind of like more scholarships would be appreciated for people who are outside Gaza but have families in Gaza or have just evacuated, especially if they also get them into programs that consider the trauma they've been going through and like to be tailored around their kind of psychological needs at the time. Actually, I lost your question. I had something else I wanted to say, but
Like informal education, I am aware of some teachers who are teaching some kids, their own kids, and
yeah, there was an initiative. It's called Al Amal, the Hope organization, but it's like there are they come up like the small initiatives of some teachers who just organize something in the tent for the kids, or in the schools, for example, they have one classroom or one like sheltered area for kids to basically language and sometimes Quran recitation or memorization and like whatever knowledge those people have. And sometimes, as I've mentioned before, older students teaching younger students of the things they have with whatever sources they have. But there is not one big enough initiative to cover or to actually follow up with many areas because of the whole like continuous displacements of people.
Thank you very much. I would like now to conclude with a comment by our friend Ayman Ghuaider, who's an educator from Gaza, now in Australia, who says education cannot wait, even if schools are destroyed. Learning is ought to continue. Palestinians have long history for learning despite all odds. Thank you to all panelists. I would like to thank you really for your contribution and comments, and I'm now passing the mic to my colleague Nour Hamad.
Thank you, Youssef, and thank you everyone who contributed to the conversation today. I know this is the first step that we have to take is to discuss and to educate each other. As Dr. Nour said, education is hope, and hope is dangerous in the hands of the oppressor. I know that really stuck with me. And so I'd like to share a couple of the resources that our team have been working on. And I invite all of the attendees to email us with links and resources to anything that you find would be helpful in this discussion. I'll be sending a recap email on Tuesday. So any links that will be helpful, I can share it with the wider audience. I think we had over 400 people registered. So all of these people would get those links and the recording as well. I want to share a few resources that AFSC has produced, one of which is called Displaced in Gaza. This is a collection of testimonies from Gazans who have been displaced repeatedly in their home. And this speaks to something that Nour also mentioned in the call today, which is the importance of documenting and narrating, and the importance and the requirement of our stories to be told. And this is something that we invite everyone to read the testimonies and share them. And if you're a student, make a group and read them with your student groups, with your clubs. These are the first steps that we have to take to helping rebuild education in Gaza. Another helpful resource that I'd like to share with all of you is our action hours. These are every Friday at noon Eastern time. And if you join them, we make calls to Congress. Of course, the first steps to rebuilding education is a ceasefire, and we need to continue and push all of our Congress people to call for a ceasefire. Lastly, we have our program page, which you can visit. It has news about Gaza. We have staff in Gaza. We have staff in the West Bank, and we provide updates from them. So these are another accounts of firsthand accounts from Gaza. And yeah, you can visit our page there. My colleagues will put those in the chat. And lastly, just thank you all for joining us today. I think we'll conclude the panel here. But as always, the discussion continues, and this topic will be definitely an ongoing process. So thank you for coming, and thank you to our guest speakers.
Thank you, Nour. Thank you, Youssef.
Thank you.
Thank you.